So, Jody, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Good to see you again, buddy. Anyway, last time you were on, we were dealing with the subject of a lot of court closures within the county. Everything's being condensed into Fresno. All the satellite courts are being closed, and all the ramifications there. And now we're going into other things where the cuts are starting to go into the clerk's office. So I'll let you kind of spin forward with that one.
Sure, that's exactly right. What we've seen is based on a global perspective, we've seen a 24% reduction in the state courts budget. Mm-hmm. So what we were talking about before is that the courts have really been decreased in their staffing capacity, and the latest one is a hit to the clerk's office here in Fresno County. So this is a release from the court itself. I'm not making this up, mm-hmm. but what's happening is that they're going to have to cut some hours, and that's important for our viewers because what happens is that if you're trying to handle a litigation matter, and specifically a civil litigation matter, you don't want to miss a deadline. So what we're having here is limited to civil, family court services, family law and support, probate, and small claims. Mm-hmm. So we're not talking about criminal, we're talking about the civil world here, mm-hmm. and everything at the BF Sisk Civil Courthouse here in Fresno County. So what's going to happen is they're going to do a reduction in court hours effective July 8th. So next month, not yet, but next month, July 8th of this year, they're going to reduce the clerk's hours to 8 to 3 Monday through Thursday and 8 to noon on Friday. So typically what we had right now is 8 to 4 every day, and we're going to go down to 8 to 3 Monday through Thursday, 8 to noon on Friday. Except for the self-help center is still going to be open. So if you're doing it yourself, if you have a civil litigation matter, which I don't recommend that you handle yourself, but if you do, the self-help center is still available from 8 to 4 every day except Wednesday when they're closed. The remedy that the court has come to in order to try and band-aid this a little bit is a drop box. So if it's outside of those hours, 8 to 3 Monday through Thursday and 8 to noon on Friday, then you're going to have to leave it at a drop box. So you're going to have to timestamp your documents. Any of these litigation cases that have deadlines, this has a really big impact on what you're doing with your cases because you don't want to miss a deadline. So I always prefer to have a clerk there to tell me, or the process server, whether the filing is correct or incorrect. So hence, this is another reason why I would recommend using counsel if you have a civil litigation matter, and make sure that you're using a registered process server so that you can handle those through somebody else instead of trying to meet all these deadlines yourself. For that drop box, there's some specific rules. Documents have to be time-stamped. They have to be before 5 p.m., and that'll mean it's processed that day. If it's after 5 p.m., it's going to be processed the next business day, and that's exactly how they'll treat it if it's not time-stamped at all. So as far as the deadlines are concerned, you want to make sure that you meet your deadlines in these civil litigation matters, and if you're getting there outside of those hours, then you're looking at a timestamp. Make sure that you get it time-stamped, and make sure that you're paying correctly. So the payment has to be in check or money order. You can't leave cash in a drop box. Mm-hmm. So another thing to consider if you're running your own civil litigation, this is another reason why you want counsel, and you want to make sure that counsel is using a licensed process server. So that's my recommendation, Tim. I really think that it's just another reason why you should perhaps pursue mediation if you can get the case settled, arbitration. If it's important enough to have a civil litigation matter, you might make it important enough to do it yourself. You can hire a private arbitrator to hear the case, and you can do it at a much faster pace. You can avoid not only this problem, but the problem that we talked about last time, the fact that there's not going to be a court reporter at every motion hearing. And not only that, but then you've got an 18-month or so time frame to get a civil litigation matter heard in Fresno County. So
is that what the time frame is now?
It's about,
really?
What's going to happen is if you file a civil litigation in Fresno County, they're going to give you a case management conference, and they won't set trial dates until at least that first case management conference. So that first case management conference is going to come maybe a couple months after you file your case, and even assuming that the case is at issue, meaning the answers have been filed at that time, then they'll set trial dates, but they haven't been really setting trial dates out for less than about a year from that case management conference. So you're looking at 14, 18-month time frame.
Really?
Yeah, for trial.
So if something really needed immediate attention and there was an issue that you needed to pursue, you're looking at probably an 18-month window to even
You could easily be looking at 2 years in a civil litigation matter. Some of them are going faster than that. There are, if it's a court trial without a jury and it's going to be less than a day, those are going faster. Those are a couple months. But if it's a jury trial with more than a day's worth of time, it's going to take a long time. It's going to be on the unlimited calendar if it's over $25,000. So if it's big enough to be on the unlimited calendar and it needs to get done fast, you might think about a private arbitrator. The parties would get together, hire the arbitrator themselves, agree to be bound by the arbitrator's ruling, and then let the arbitrator act as the judge in the case, and that way we could get it done a lot faster.
Absolutely. The scrolling back a little bit here, a lot of folks I think are, we always hear about the county clerk and all these other offices. What's really in the scope of everything that happens in that clerk's office and what they do?
The clerk is really in charge of taking in all the filings and all of the other documents. So not only from the beginning of the case with the complaint and the summons gets issued from the clerk's office. They're in charge of filing all the documents. So the answers that get filed by the defendants in the case, any motions, all of those, every single paper that gets filed in
subpoenas,
exactly,
everything.
Anything that gets filed. So any proofs of service get filed there. Everything goes through that clerk's office because that's essentially the court's file for that specific matter. So there are some things that don't go through there, but if it's important, it gets filed. So,
and then they also handle the birth certificates and death certificates and all that too, right?
Well, I think you're talking about the county clerk.
Okay, that's
this is limited to the civil court clerk's office.
Okay, so there's a separate. Okay,
that's exactly right. So let's not confuse those because this is just the civil courthouse and wouldn't even extend to the criminal courthouse. So not even the old courthouse that's on in the middle of the park there, Courthouse Park.
Okay. You were talking about getting into the world of ways to avoid having to go into court in a full. Then there's always very appropriate times when that needs to be done.
Correct.
And certain matters just need that venue to be resolved. But like in the case of real estate, our real estate contracts, if there is a dispute, it's part of the contract. It's not even negotiable. Mediation is the first step, and then after that you have the option of arbitration if everyone agrees to arbitration.
Exactly.
And finally the lawsuit. So why don't we talk about it, because our viewership is constantly changing, the steps of going from mediation, arbitration, or then going into court in a lawsuit.
Sure. We talked a little bit about mediation one of the last times that I was here, but essentially that's a third party comes in and mediates between the two sides and hopefully comes to a resolution to resolve the dispute between the parties, and they write that up in some sort of agreement and then agree to live by that agreement, and there are enforcement mechanisms, etc. An arbitration is a lot more like what I was just talking about earlier, which is trying to replicate the court system. So we've got an arbitrator that is set up almost like the judge, and they make rulings and motions are brought before that arbitrator. And what I was mentioning is, as a possible mechanism, if there's a case that can't deal with the lack of speed for the local courthouses or needs quick resolution, then mediation is a possibility. But also, private arbitrators don't get used enough, and I think that's a mechanism that a client can come to, or a business owner like your viewers can come to an attorney and say, look, if it's worth it to hire an arbitrator and get this thing done in 180 days, then let's do it. Because we don't have the ability. This is a bet the business type of case, or it's big enough. There's enough money on the line.
Right.
Let's just hire the private arbitrator, get it decided in a quicker fashion, or some other circumstance that would lead you to do it quickly, as opposed to waiting for the court system. Ultimately, obviously, the court system is a good ultimate determiner and ultimate finder of fact if that's not available, or if the money's not going to provide for that. But It's one of the things we.
Right, and then when you go into open court, the dynamics change dramatically. Now you're dealing with the dynamics of a jury, which you've been through that, so there's a lot of things up in the air here.
Exactly, and trials are generally a toss-up because you never know what the jury's going to do. It's really hard to predict what opposing counsel and the judge are going to do, and so we try and prepare our best for civil litigation, and we present the facts and we give our defenses, and you hope for the best. But in an arbitration context, what we were talking about is if there's some reason why we can't even wait to get to that trial, then let's think about hiring a private arbitrator. Let's think about whether that's beneficial for us. And certainly, even before then, let's think about mediation. Have we talked about settlement in this litigation? Is it something that we can resolve, or are we just going to do battle in court?
Oh yeah, and that's what I tell my real estate clients. You have a mediation clause. It's plugged right into the contract, and every step that you move through the process, the dollars involved become greater.
That's exactly right.
And your risks of success become greater too.
That's exactly right. Mediators are not that expensive for a day. Perhaps maybe even $1,000, $1,200, something like that. You can split that between the parties even. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about an investment, but not in the case of large civil litigation matters. We're really talking about a small investment to hopefully resolve and get a case settled. And we can do a mediation as soon as there's a case filed, and even before. You can mediate and settle a case before there's actually a filed case at the courthouse. So that's something to think about.
Absolutely, and then the big value of that is you resolve the issue, and then everybody moves on with their life.
Yeah, because it's going to resolve eventually anyway, either by mediation or the court's going to make a decision.
So, absolutely. Jody, thanks for coming in today. Appreciate it, and looking forward to having you on again soon.